Hello and good morning. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, as my shirt says today, and I am hoping that you're doing well on Wednesday, July 10th. I'll be here for the next hour to talk about Stonemaier Games, random topics, and to answer your questions. And if I remember this week, I'll also answer some ambassador questions that I have up on my other screen that Stonemaier ambassadors asked on a survey a few months ago. Mark, Ian, Chad, Garrett, thank you all for joining us today. Chad says that he had a great two-player game of Expeditions with the Gears of Corruption expansion. He says the corrupted mech is so easy to use and so much fun to navigate around. I'm glad to hear that, Chad. Yeah, I tried to make here's my bias. I generally don't like in cooperative games, and Gears of Corruption is not a cooperative game, but I generally don't like in cooperative games where the players have to manage an AI in a cumbersome way. And so that was a big part of my focus in designing how the corrupted mech acts and moves around. I wanted it to be very quick, very low maintenance. Ideally, the players wouldn't have to maintain the AI at all. But yeah, hopefully I got the job done there. Tried to take some inspirations from Automa Factory. Hey, Dusty's joining us today. Good to see you, Dusty. And Brian as well, one of our great proofreaders. See Megan and Tim are joining us as well. I'll go through my topics today real quick. I have a small question of the day, but not a big question, just a tiny one. I'll start off with that. Why not? So I have been listening to a podcast that I really enjoy called Family Trips. I believe that's the name of it, Family Trips. It's from Seth Meyers and his brother, two comedians. It's a really charming podcast. It's delightful to listen to. It's a fun topic to discuss. I think we all have memories of family trips, or most people have memories of family trips, good or bad. And maybe you have families now that you go on trips with, and so you have memories and stories from that too. So that's their podcast. But they do this thing where every now and then they have listeners chime in with their stories, and they use something called Speak Pipe. They use an app, a web app called Speak Pipe, that lets people record audio messages, and those messages are automatically sent to the podcast the way they have it set up, so that they can use, I think, those messages on their podcast. I think it's pretty clever. I haven't seen anything like this before that I can think of. It's kind of a system that I've tried to find for images in the past, where I want people to send me images that I can share on videos and things like that when we do our April Fool's video once a year. But I haven't used audio clips before, and I just wanted to. I'm trying to figure out if there is a blog post there, or if it's just worth mentioning a little bit because I think it's a neat technology. Can you see any utility for that based on what we do at Stonemaier Games, or in general for any creator who might use something like that, where they can accept audio clips from anyone and then use those clips for something? I don't know for what. That's what I'm asking you about. Yeah. Steve, I appreciate Steve always asking about my chocolate of the day, Steve. What is it today? Last week I said it was going to be, I think I did XOXO chocolate last week, a 70% dark, and I actually still have a little bit of that left. So that might be my chocolate of the day today. Yeah, I'll say that. This dark chocolate, 70% dark chocolate XOXO brand that I'm enjoying. Steve, what are you enjoying today? What's your indulgence of the day? Your inner child says that Board Game Arena is awesome, but making a game on there is a ton of work. That's what I've heard. I haven't tried to do it myself. Is Stonemaier Games seeing a return on investment in having our games there? I'm loving them, by the way, and helping to teach and learn games through it like Tapestry. I coincidentally, the video that I recorded just a couple days ago, yesterday, was about my favorite games on Board Game Arena right now. I think this is a topic that I brought up a week or so ago, and you all chimed in with your thoughts. You're right that the ROI is not just the financial aspect of it. It's helping people get comfortable with games, helping to teach them games, and hopefully, in my mind, hopefully for at least some of those games, it's encouraging people to actually buy the tabletop version, the way the game, I think, was designed to be played, not just for Stonemaier Games, for any publisher. In terms of revenue, we make some money off of Board Game Arena. It isn't in the greater picture of our overall revenue. It is a very small portion, but it is incoming revenue. I mean, it's actually enough to pay for a couple Stonemaier Games employees. So it is a significant amount of revenue from that perspective. I think that's largely due to Wingspan, but Viticulture, Tapestry definitely play a role in that. And I think Tapestry actually gets a lot of play on Board Game Arena. So I think that definitely plays a role in it. And I think viticulture will get a lot more play if they finally add Tuscany to the board game arena. I'm hoping they do that. But Wingspan gets a lot of play there too. And I think Scythe is coming soon. It's on beta, and it should be there fairly soon. Or I think it will be on beta fairly soon. Let's see. Ray says that he had a great weekend with his family playing Dune Imperium with both expansions, Gloomhaven, and So Clover. Nice contrast there of games. Did you get to play any good games over the 4th of July weekend? You know, oddly, I don't think I did play any games over the 4th of July weekend. I mostly just worked and played some sports. And so I played disc golf and I played soccer. But I didn't play any. I don't think I played. No, I did a play test. I did a play test, maybe even more than one play test. But didn't play any published games that I can think of over the weekend. Mostly just, I often don't even notice that holidays are happening because it's just another work day for me. But I'm glad you had a great 4th. That sounds like a great way to spend your 4th. I did get to play Arcs on Wednesday game night last week, and I'm really glad I got the chance to play it. I filmed a video about it the next day, posted it on Friday, and it's actually one of the more popular single game videos that I've posted in a while. I think people are very curious about Arcs right now. And I thought the combat mechanism was really cool. I'm not usually drawn to combat in games, and I don't even know if it's fair in this game. It does feel a little bit lucky, but it's a really cool mechanism that I talk about in that video, where the attacker is doing everything. They're choosing some dice, they're rolling the dice, they're implementing the dice, and the dice might hurt the attacker just as much, if not even more so, than the defender. And the defender doesn't really do anything unless they have a special card. But typically, by default, they don't actually do anything in combat, which I think is really interesting, that only the attacker is doing things in combat in Arcs. Yeah. Tadej says, yesterday Spain won in the semifinal in the Euro tournament. Yeah, they beat France. That was quite a game. Who do you think will win today between England and the Netherlands? And from those 3 teams, who will win in the final of Euro 2024? Great questions. I'm curious about anyone's answers about this if you're following soccer. I'm following, of course, Copa and the Euros. So Argentina won against Canada yesterday here. And I'm hoping for Colombia's playing Uruguay today. I did not like the way that Uruguay played against Brazil. They played a very, very physical, foul-heavy game. And so I'm hoping they don't do that against Colombia. And I've really liked watching Colombia. So I'm hoping it'll be Colombia-Argentina in the final for Copa. I follow English Premier League quite a bit. And it's an interesting matchup because I think England or Manchester United's coach, I believe, is from the Netherlands. And so it's an interesting matchup between England and Netherlands here. I follow EPL quite a bit, so I am rooting for England to win, but I am also just rooting for a good game and a high-scoring, entertaining game between England and Netherlands, and then whoever goes on to Spain. I'm hoping it'll be Spain against England in the finale, and I think I'm rooting maybe slightly for England to win that if they make it. So yeah, but I'm happy for any of these teams to win. I don't have allegiances to any of them in particular. I see Tim is joining us. Good morning, Tim. Chad says, I watch reviews of expeditions, and an odd amount of people get hung up on calling the cards on the left of your mat your hand. Do you regret not calling those cards reserves or something else? I guess maybe I should regret it if that many people are confused about it. But we really, I mean, it was a major point of discussion during the playtest for the game, and what we decided on is that it is the most intuitive thing to call it your hand of cards. Your hand is typically the cards that you have available to play, whether your hand is actually physically in your hand or if it is on the table face up. Like in Wingspan, you have a hand of cards in Wingspan, but you can play it face up on the table. Same in Viticulture. So I think it's a little odd that people are getting hung up on it. If it is actually, I don't know if it's actually confusing or if they just want their cards in hand. And if it's confusing that way, they can just pick up their cards and keep them in hand if they want. That isn't a big problem in expeditions if people want to do that. Yeah, I think it's the most intuitive term for it. So no, I don't think I really regret that. Yeah. Ian says that Carter Ferguson, a friend of his in Scotland, uses SpeakPipe for his podcast. I've used it and it's fantastic. That's great. I'm glad it works well. Yeah, I haven't actually used it yet, but I'm glad that works well. Yeah, I haven't in the past had anyone else chime in with audio in for one of our podcasts. Our podcasts are really just me reading a blog post, so it's not really a podcast. Yeah, so but yeah, it could have some potential to use, I think. Let's see. Garrett says, what would you say is the highest complexity game that you love? Anything over 4.0 on Board Game Geek? I don't actually know if I would say I'm not a complex gamer. I typically play games between probably 2 and 3, barely above 3. Let's see on Board Game Geek if I have any games that I've played that I've rated really highly that are above a 4. Let's see. I'm going to go over to my profile, my collection here to see. Well, not my collection, all my ratings. I've rated 1,230 games on Board Game Geek at this point. That's a lot of games. So let's see if I can sort by. I'll have to do it. Okay, I'll do an advanced search here by weight. Okay, weight of 4 to 4.9 that I've rated. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, there are some on here. Okay, the games that I've rated 8 or higher that are 4.2 or a 4 point weight or higher looks like Through the Ages, Gaia Project. I don't actually have it. I'm going to change that to an 8. I do like Gaia Project. So Through the Ages, Gaia Project, Anachrony, which I've actually only played once, but I thought it was really clever, and Hegemony. I have that at 8 as well. Yeah, those are the ones 4.0 or higher. That said, of those, I've only played Anachrony once. I've only played Hegemony once. The one that I'm most likely to play again is probably Gaia Project. So let's put Gaia Project at the top of that list. Yeah. What about you, Garrett, or anyone else who loves heavy games? Or actually, no, anyone can answer this question. But if there's anyone like me who typically does not play those super complex games, is there an exception to that rule for you, a heavier game that you really, really do enjoy? Dusty is talking about SpeakPipe. He says, I think audio would be a you preference. Would it be cool to hear from us in addition to writing? If so, it's probably worth looking into. Maybe, Dusty, that makes me think, maybe I should just try it. Maybe I should do a, actually, it would be interesting to do this. Normally if it's not too cumbersome in terms of technology, but normally when I do a podcast, I'm just reading an article from our website out loud. But what if after I post a blog, instead of immediately recording the audio for the podcast, what if I included a SpeakPipe link and let people respond with audio comments to the article, and then posted those comments as part of the recording? As I'm saying that, I'm thinking that could be cool. At the same time, it could be just as easy for me to actually just read some of the comments out loud that people post on Facebook and on the blog on our website. So I'm not sure there. I guess it is nice to hear other people's voices sometimes, so that's nice. But it might be easier for people just to type in their comments. But maybe I could still try it. See if anyone uses it. Adam says, I dropped off watching Survivor after season 40, but with Survivor 50 on the horizon, I'm wanting to watch it again. And I will say they've done some really interesting things. Some hits, some misses, but all interesting, in my opinion, in the new era, they're calling it, everything that follows season 40. What seasons after 40 do you recommend? That is a tough question, Adam, because I love every season of Survivor. And I think that casting gets really, really good after 40. And after 40, you don't have any returning survivors. Everyone has been new for all of the seasons that follow 40. And so it's all been fresh faces, all new people to get to know. Honestly, I'd start with 41 and go from there and see if you like it. I think you'll know within 1 or 2 seasons if the new era is for you. But yeah, I'd start with 41, and I think they did a really good job casting 41. Yeah. Carissa confirms that she'd love to have Tuscany on Board Game Arena. I believe, I'm 99% sure. Here, I'll check my email. I'm pretty sure that I have authorized Board Game Arena to put Tuscany on there. And let's see if I have an email confirmation about that. Let's see. I believe Tuscany is available on the full digital version now. That's what I'm seeing from Digidiced, that version. Is it available, or have I authorized Board Game Arena to do it? I believe so. I have to go back a little bit in these emails to confirm that, but I believe I have said it's fine for them to do that. Yeah. Tim says, do you drive a Tesla? We got our first one at the shop this week, and the key looks like a business card. We found it odd. Yeah, I do have a Tesla. I got a Model 3 a couple years ago. I really enjoy it. And the key, that's kind of actually, that's the backup key. It is a business card-like key, and it is odd. I agree. That is the key that you can like easily share with other people. But when I get into my car, I don't use the key at all. It just recognizes that I am nearby through my phone, and the doors automatically unlock, which is weird but amazing that the car can do that. Like I'm so used to, prior to this car, having to like unlock the car with a key fob, but I don't have a car key anymore. It's just my phone, and in my wallet I keep that business card as a backup key. Yeah. Ian, thanks. So Ian asked for recommendations last week. I believe it was worker placement, engine building, and something else for his birthday. He ended up getting Dice Miner. I love Dice Miner. Kinfire Delve, which I've heard great things about, and For Northwood, really clever solo game that actually does work like solo co-op if you want it to. And he bought Dune Imperium for himself as well. That's awesome, Ian. I'm glad you had a good birthday. I'll keep going. I'll go for a few more questions live, and then I'll look over and do a few ambassador questions so I don't totally forget about them. And actually, any other really, I don't have any big topics today. Blog posts recently were about a restaurant that closed in St. Louis for a specific reason related to a few different factors. But you can, that blog post was last Thursday, generated a lot of conversation. And also I did a blog post this past Monday about the viability of creating a pitch or a trailer for a game that you're working on before actually designing the game or fully designing the game. I thought it was an interesting concept. Originally, the talk, it was a GDC talk about video games, but I thought it applied pretty well to tabletop games as well. And my video this past weekend, it was about my top 10 games of 2024 so far. No rules for it. Just any games that I played for the first time in 2024 were eligible for that list. And that was a fun list to make. I have a few other little fun topics, but I'll come back to them later. Let's see. Philippe says he played the Art Project, the game called Art Project last weekend, which is a pandemic-like game, and I discovered Castles of Burgundy. Don't know how I missed that since it's been around for some time. A lot of games, hard to play every game. I'm glad it's never too late to discover them. So I'm glad you discovered those games. Tom says, you say in your submission guidelines that all submissions require a unique component. How unique does a component have to be for you to consider it unique? Original meeple shape, special dice. The idea is that for all of our games, we're looking for one component to really stand out, to have table presence, to have people, when people see it or hear about it, they're like, oh, I want to have that. I need to have that. It doesn't need to be all that special. It just needs to have a component that needs the potential to be special. Like even like in Rolling Realms has a few neat component hooks, cards that you write on. You don't see that in many games, but I think the big, beautiful dice in Rolling Realms are a standout component. I see these dice and I'm like, oh, these are bigger dice than normal. They're marbled. They have a nice color combination, and they use hexes instead of standard pips, even though they are standard D6 dice. So just a little tweak to a die can make a big difference. So that's what we're looking for. At least one must-have component that draws people into your game. Doesn't need to be more unique than that. George says, how was ARCs? Did you have a fun experience? I think the way I would say it is that I'm glad that I played Arcs, and yes, I did have a good time playing Arcs for that first game. I don't know if it's the type of game that I'd come back to. Uh, it's I don't know. It's hard to say for various reasons, and I don't want to knock on the game because it is a game that the designer and a lot of other people put clearly a ton of time and effort into creating this game to create memorable moments and interesting interactions, which I do like in games. I really like games that are designed around memorable moments. There is a lot of negative player interaction and a fair amount of luck in the game. And really, honestly, I was the most curious about the core mechanism of this trick-taking element of the game. But that was the part that I think fell the most short for me because it requires a huge amount of luck in the game unless you want to sacrifice a lot to take the lead. What I'm talking about here is that in Arcs, the player who leads, they determine kind of the type of actions that are available for that round in a way. So if I lead with a certain color, that color has certain actions on that card that I can take. And any player can follow with any card, but you can only take multiple actions if you follow with a higher card of the same type. So if you don't have a higher card of the same type, there's nothing you can do to take more than one card action. The game does give you the flexibility to take any card action because you can play a card face down as any action, but no matter if it's face down or off suit, you cannot take more than one card action on that turn. There are other ways to take other little actions, but you have to take them before your turn. So you have to figure those out before your turn, even though sometimes you want to take them during your turn. A little fiddly in that way. But this is I thought it made a fairly big difference in our game that your ability to take multiple card actions on your turn is entirely dependent on you having a hand of cards, a random hand of cards that happens to have cards of higher numbers of the lead suit. And the game works around this by giving you the agency to grab the lead by playing 2 cards on your turn instead of 1, which is fine. You can do that. That's a pretty big sacrifice to make to do that. I did it several times in the game because I wanted the lead. But the other way to get the lead in the game is to play a card with a higher number of the lead suit. And so it's a double whammy if you don't have a higher card of the lead suit, because not only can you not take more actions, but it's much higher to grab the lead so that you can play more actions after that. So all that that obviously made a lasting impression on me in Arcs, in addition to other things. But I still do think the combat mechanism in the game is really innovative. I think it's a really, really innovative mechanism. Let's see. Mark says, on the sell sheet of Rolling Realms Redux on the Stonemaier Games website, the new solo mode seems to be related to soccer. Will it be revealed ahead of release day? It will. Yeah. All next week, I'll be doing design diaries for Rolling Realms. So starting on Monday, I'll have 1 or 2 posts from Corel and then 1 or 2 posts from the Automa team so that you can see the background, the stories behind this game. Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. So a design diary post next week. And then the following week on the 24th, that'll be the launch of the game on our web store. And reviews of the game should be available starting on Monday, the 22nd. Yeah. Jeremy says, any thoughts on the Kickstarter Night Shift and adult themes and board games? I understand if you skip the question to avoid controversy. I think that's a fair question. Night Shift is a game about exotic dancers trying to make money. And it isn't a theme that I'm excited to explore on my tabletop, but I applaud anyone who's trying to explore other games that we haven't seen, other themes that we haven't seen on the tabletop before. And I think that there's a great video from Board Game Co. about this. He talks about how there's so many themes that we openly condone, like even Arcs. We're talking about Arcs. This is about warfare in space, where you're destroying ships, you're destroying cities where thousands of people live. And there's no controversy about that. But for someone who is working a job to make money in a strip club as an exotic dancer, that is seen as more controversial sometimes. Yeah, like I said, it isn't a theme that I'm excited to get to my tabletop. But I applaud people for trying new themes and seeing if they work and seeing if there's a market for them. Yeah. And I think it does make actually a pretty big difference that the game came from a former exotic dancer, that she is the designer of the game, opposed to someone who just wanted to make miniatures that over-sexualize women. I think there's a pretty big difference there in the source of the material there, in my opinion. Keenan's joining us for the first time live. Oh, thank you. Always welcome to be here for the first time. I'm glad you're able to chime in. Let's see. Your inner child says, if you add expansions, does it make the game heavier like everything with Scythe? I don't know the context for that question. What game are you referring to? Expeditions? What game are you referring to? Let me know. Let's see. Movie recommendation from Ray. An indie film called Hundreds of Beavers that he wholly recommends. Has a crew of only 6 people and a cast of 4. And it's cartoonishly violent and fun, but mostly live action, not a kids movie. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that to learn a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah. Hundreds of Beavers is the film there. I asked all of you if you have some complex games, some really complex games that you really enjoy. Aaron mentions Brass Birmingham and War of the Ring here, and he is going to try Hegemony. Here we have Spirit Island. Yeah, Spirit Island is definitely in that category of weight of 4+. Brian's talking about my question of the day about SpeakPipe, a way for people to chime in with audio comments. And he says, I hear some podcasts still use a phone number for listeners to call in. This tool feels like a higher quality audio option. I agree. Yeah. And it can be done at any time, which is nice. It's not in real time. Hey, Steve says he wants a Survivor-inspired set of realms, or even just one realm from Rolling Realms. Luis says, just want to throw this out. Thank you for these videos. Love watching your favorite mechanism episodes. We love Wingspan. Thanks for publishing awesome titles. Just a nice comment. Okay, well, thank you so much, Luis. I appreciate that. And yeah, it is my pleasure to make these videos about games that I love. Actually, and not just about games that I love, but anything that I love about games that I play. I definitely don't love every game that I play, but I can always try to find something positive in the games I play, or I always try to, and share that on my channel. Let's see. Julio is able to join us today for the first time in a while. He got his engineering license last month, and his responsibilities went up tenfold and haven't been able to join in lately. But I'm glad you're able to chime in today, Julio. Julio was with me, or joined me for an episode of the channel a few months ago, maybe a month ago, about graphic design. A great discussion about graphic design in games. Star Wars Rebellion is 3.74. Wow. See, that speaks to my weight of games that I pursue, because Star Wars Rebellion is a really, really heavy game, in my opinion. I would put that in my personal weight scale above 4, but it's slightly below 4, apparently. Around the Stump Game says, what do you think about player manipulation as a competitive game mechanism, like persuading players to take a certain action through table talk? Interesting question. Yeah, player manipulation. Yeah, manipulation it kind of has some negative undertones to it, but negotiation is another way of putting it. And persuasion. I think persuasion is a good way to put it. I often like it. I like it. So I like in games, like I often do this in Ink and Gold. Ink and Gold's a game where you run into a dungeon and you then run out of the dungeon when you're ready. And I often just tell players, I'm like, I'm running out right now. If you want to run out with me, then no one's going to get this special artifact, but I'm going to run out of the dungeon right now, or run out of the temple right now. So I think the key, though, that I found for games that have that sort of mechanism is that it's fast, that the added layer of player negotiation, persuasion, manipulation, whatever you want to call it, does not bog down the game, does not stall the game. And so if you're able to do it quickly, and players it's built into the game in such a way that players are able to do it organically and quickly, I think it's great. It can be a great layer to add to games. But if you don't have that, if it bogs down the game, if it stalls the game, I think that can be a big problem. Yeah. David is joining us. David is Connie Vogelman's partner. He says, just wanted to wish everyone well, been very busy. And David's been very gracious with his time answering questions about Apiary and Wormspan. But he's going to be at Gen Con. So if you want to meet David and Connie at Gen Con, feel free to drop by the Stonemaier Games booth to see what we have there, including Rolling Realms Redux will be there. Dennis says, have you watched the video from Pam Walls, designer of Blob Party, regarding the Meeple trademark drama? I have watched that video. Yeah, really, really excellent deep dive into the history of the Meeple patent, the Meeple shape, Hans am Glück, even the story behind the name Hans am Glück. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But I did watch that, and I watched Pam's follow-up video where she answers questions that were asked in the comments multiple times. It's a really good video as well. Pete says he's loving the expansion for Expeditions. Thanks, Pete. And he's working on Charterstone and Clank Legacy. Some great legacy games there. Let's see. The Champion Faction says, I played Arcs over the weekend, and I'm still thinking about it. As with probably all leader games, and I think they would agree, it's not for everyone. I like it, but I'm still deciding how much. Yeah, I think that's the case with any games, right? That's it. Ian says, his health is really bad right now. I'm sorry to hear that, Ian, and I need more exercise, so I'm considering disc golf. What do I need to start? And I think that's great that you're looking to start to address your health through some exercise, if that is what your body needs right now. I have definitely seen people who have made significant changes in their health as the result of playing disc golf, because it is essentially just a hike where you're playing a game along the way. All you need to do to start disc golf are 3 discs. You need a putter, you need a mid-range disc, and you need a distance disc. And then you need to throw those discs a lot in a lot of different ways. It needs to leave your hand at different angles. You need to try to put more spin on the disc. You need to experiment with different ways of throwing it. Don't just try to throw it the same way every time, because it'll probably not go where you want it to go every time. But yeah, that's all you need. 3 discs. You can get the disc from pretty much anywhere. I would recommend not going with like the cheapest starter discs, because oftentimes they use really, really cheap plastic. But and that does make a difference. But you can get discs from the Stonemaier Games web store. We sell Stonemaier Games custom imprint discs on our web store if you want to check them out. But you can also probably get other starter sets from companies like Innova. That's INNOVA if you want to give that a try as well. Let's see. Chad says, in Arcs, do you feel if you play the second card to get initiative, that your next turn would give you more total actions in the long run, even if you lose a turn? Curious about the actual amount of pips. Yeah, the lower the value of the card, the more actions you get from that card. So could it even out? Maybe. Yeah, if I play 2 cards and only take 1 action, but grab the lead, and then I play a really low card for 3 or 4 actions, maybe it does even out there. But I don't know if that evens out the luck of getting a hand with cards that range from like 4, 5s, and 6s are really valuable. I believe at least a couple of those cards come with 3 actions. Some of them only come with 2 actions. But if you're just lucky and you're dealt that hand of cards, I think that has a stronger impact than if you're constantly having to play 2 cards to grab the lead. Or even if you only have to play 1 card to grab the lead. Yeah. So, and I'm not even saying that luck is bad. Like, I really do enjoy having luck and variability in games. But I think it's worth knowing that going into a game of Arcs, that your hand of cards will have the random hand of cards that you are dealt continually throughout the game will have a significant impact on the game itself. I guess the one other thing that I'll throw out there about Arcs that I had some concerns about was the length of the game. We had 2 actually very good teachers in our game. So the teach wasn't all that long. And it took us 2.5 hours to play 3/5 of the game. And we happened to finish the game because we reached the victory condition. I happened to be the winner of the game early. We reached it 3 rounds into the game, and the game ended. And it's nice that the game definitely ends at the end of 5 rounds. But if we had played for another hour, it would have easily outstayed its welcome. And it was unusual for us to end the game after only 3 rounds, 2.5 hours. So I'm guessing people get to will play faster over time. But and maybe it's just me, but a 3.5 hour game is generally too long for me to play. And I think for for the amount of I guess the weight of the game, the amount of luck in arcs, I don't know is conducive for a 3.5-hour gameplay. But I have heard, at least from one of the players at the table, that they were able to speed play arcs in around 90 minutes. So if you're able to do that, that can make a big difference, I think, despite the amount of luck that comes from the hand of cards and the dice that you're rolling in the game. Demetrio says, have you played any interesting board games with a football theme? I have not, no. It's very rare that I play sports-themed tabletop games. The main exceptions to that are racing games, which oddly enough is a sport that I'm not hardly interested in at all in real life outside of the tabletop hobby. Let's see. Fairly Odd Parent mentions Zoo Vadis as a game that has persuasion and negotiation as a core mechanism. Ray also mentions Diplomacy, that being a game that's heavy on the negotiation and the persuasion. Let's see. For rating heavy games, considering all the expansions like Innovation Deluxe, if Scythe had all expansions included, would it make it heavier and maybe your favorite? I see what you're saying. Okay, if the weight of Scythe on Board Game Geek included all expansions, would it be rated above a 4? I don't think it would. I try not to add all that much weight. In general, I try not to add all that much weight or complexity with expansions. I try to keep it even with the core game. I mean, like Tuscany for Viticulture does add a little weight, but not an extreme amount of weight. So, but hypothetically, sure, if Scythe bumped over a 4 as a result of all expansions, sure, yeah, it would definitely be my favorite game in that batch of games with a weight of 4 or higher. Hey, Steve has a nice comment about the channel as well and decided to be a champion. Thank you so much for becoming a Stonemaier champion. I really appreciate that. Champions, even though champions often do it to get a discount, which I fully appreciate, I would do the same thing if I love Stonemaier Games as much as I do, as if I wasn't involved with Stonemaier Games. But the champion membership was originally started as because people kept asking me for some way to support the channel that I spend quite a bit of time in cultivating and crafting and curating. So thank you for doing that as the result of believing in the content that I post on the YouTube channel and the blog too. The blog and the YouTube channel are both things that I spend quite a bit of time on in the hopes of adding value to other people and other creators. Steve also says that he is loving Rolling Realms and the local pickup. Awesome. I'm glad you were able to take advantage of the local pickup here in St. Louis. Let's see. Hey, Steve says, is there any way to get alerts when promos restock? Yes, there is. A couple different ways for Rolling Realms. By default, for any out-of-stock product on our web store, there's a little button that you can push to say, remind me when it's back in stock. And you just enter your email. This is on our web store, not the website, but the web store on that product. And you can just enter your email. You'll get a single notification. You're not really subscribed to anything other than a single notification when it's back in stock. You can also, for Rolling Realms, subscribe to the Rolling Realms newsletter, which we will send out a notification right before the 24th, probably on the 24th, when everything is live, including promos that were previously out of stock, like Honey Buzz. There are a few others that are out of stock as well that we'll have back in stock in time for the 24th launch. XX Redonculus says, how do you feel about games that need multiple plays to get the full experience versus games that show everything in one play? Interesting question. So I would say I actually really enjoy when I don't get to see everything in a single play. Maybe I see all the core mechanisms, but where I don't see all the cards, all the asymmetry, all the things like that. Like I want to be curious about the path not taken. However, there are so many games that a game really needs to make a good first impression on me for me to oftentimes give it a second chance. Now, there are times where I play a game and I'm like, okay, clearly we didn't get the proper, not necessarily the full experience, but the proper experience of this game, because it was a learning game, because it was a teaching game, because of the conditions, the environment. Maybe we're at a busy convention. I don't know, whatever the circumstances are, we didn't get the ideal experience of the game the first play. And oftentimes I'll give it a second play then. But I think that first play is really, really important. I think first impressions are really, really important in games. That's why I think accessibility and onboarding into games having that good first experience is really, really important. Tim says, have I played Zoo Tycoon? I wonder how it compares to Ark Nova. I have not played it, so I don't know. If anyone's welcome to mention that in the comments here. Chad says, it might be fun to have a Stonemaier Games starter pack. That's a good point. I wonder if we could do that for the discs. There is a way that we can have recommendations at checkout. I might think about that, Chad. Yeah, I like that. I'll make a note about starter disc sets. We don't have many bundles on our website. Bundles are way more difficult to maintain than you might think on web stores. But what we do have ways of suggesting products to people either at the point of purchase or once the product is in their cart. So that might be something that we try to do for the discs to say, hey, like you have this disc in your cart. We also recommend complementing it with these 2 other discs. Might give that a try. Champion Faction says something that I can relate to. I've really enjoyed disc golf, but I find that my elbow begins to hurt badly after a round. I have no idea what I'm doing. I guess it's possible altering my form of style can make it less painful. So I experienced that quite a bit. I was primarily when I don't. Are you a forehand thrower or a backhand thrower? Backhand for anyone watching is like this. Forehand is where you're using motion like this. I started out as primarily a forehand thrower and quickly found that my elbow hurt quite a bit from throwing with forehand. And the reason that I found that I was doing that is I was throwing mostly with my elbow and my wrist. I wasn't using my whole body, my torso, my core, my shoulder. I wasn't doing all that. And so when I switched to doing that, when I used my whole body for my forehand, finishing with my elbow and my wrist and following through a little bit, I still do have a little bit of elbow pain. I ice afterwards. But it's greatly diminished and I can throw much, much farther than I did when I was only throwing with my elbow and wrist. So you might try that. You might give that a try, focusing on your whole body, the rest of your body, not just your elbow and your wrist when you're throwing. Luke says, when designing, how much theme do you imagine while working? I can't help myself. I create lore, history, etc. It aids me in deciding if mechanisms are best for this game. I would say I'm very similar to that, Luke. Yeah, I really struggle to... In fact, I don't think I can design a game just based on mechanisms. I need to know what the theme is to inform those mechanisms. And yeah, I am constantly thinking about how the theme applies to the mechanisms, what the theme is, what the story is, what the world is, what the experience is, how players are feeling, how they might feel. It's hypothetical at that point when I'm designing a game. So yeah, I can't help myself either. I can definitely relate to that. Okay, Champion Faction clarifies that they're a backhand thrower. Interesting. But I agree that I'm probably not using my whole body. See, when I throw backhand, my shoulder hurts. My elbow is fine with backhand. Totally fine, actually. But my shoulder really does hurt. So I've been working on that, using more of my body, using the follow through a little bit more. Yeah, if you focus on the rest of your body, I think that should help. Your stance too, your feet, your footwork. Tony says, has your favorite game mechanism, styles, and length evolved as you age? I feel like I've stayed in gateway or filler mode. Mine definitely have. Yeah. I even though I still primarily gravitate towards medium weight Euro games, I've expanded in a lot of different directions based on different people that I play with at different times, different styles of play, playing on Board Game Arena sometimes versus the tabletop. But yeah, my preferences have evolved quite a bit over time. Yeah. I don't want to forget to mention the things that I mentioned in the title today. Actually, I've already covered soccer and ARCs. Soccer is referring to both Euros and Copa, and that I played soccer this past weekend and had a great time. Again, my body didn't really hold up to it all that well. I've been limping around a little bit, but I had a great time playing. And then Hacks. Hacks is a show that Megan and I really recently discovered. It's on HBO about comedians, and it's a scripted HBO show or HBO Max show about comedians, and we're really enjoying it. It's a great, funny lunchtime show that I would highly recommend if you have access to Max. That show is called Hacks. And now, before I forget, let me answer some ambassador questions. And these are fun questions for everyone. I'll ask them and answer them, but you're welcome to answer them as well. So one ambassador question was, how many different pets have you had in your life? Currently, I have one pet, Walter. I lost my pet, Biddy, about 9 months ago. And so for a long time, I had two pets. Over the course of my life, though, Biddy was my first pet, my first like real pet. I did have, I dated someone a girlfriend had a cat that she brought to the relationship before that. So that pet was kind of mine. So that I'll count that as 3 for this question. And then when we were young, we had gerbils for a little bit. So I guess they technically count. They are pets. Very different compared to cats. I think we had probably 5 gerbils in my childhood. So yeah, I guess that's 8 total pets, 5 gerbils and 3 cats. Really the primary focus being on 2 cats, Biddy and Walter. But yeah, how many pets have you had in your lifetime? That's a fun question. The other question here that I have from Stonemaier Ambassadors is, how often do you play Stonemaier games outside of your job? And I'll consider this, how often do I play the published versions of Stonemaier games outside of my job? I can tell that you generally enjoy playing board games as a hobby, but since it's also part of your job, do you ever get burned out on playing games? Well, 2 different questions there in a way. I do love playing Stonemaier games. I absolutely do. And I don't get to play them all that often, but I do love when people suggest them. When someone else is really excited or eager to play, especially if I don't have to teach them, but I am generally fine with teaching their games too, because I've designed or developed them around being fairly easy to teach. Yeah, I'm almost always happy to play any one of our games. Do I ever get burned out on playing games? I don't know if burnout is the right way to put it. But there are times where I am more excited to work on work on new designs than I am to play existing games. I think I've experienced that a little bit recently, where I have not played many games over the last few weekends. Even though I could have played with friends, I could have played with Megan easily, but instead more focused on Stonemaier Games work and working on moving some of the games that we have in progress forward. I was more excited about that. So it's definitely is not that I am less excited to play tabletop games, but maybe just given where I am in the process in these other games, I'm a little more excited to work on them. Yeah. But I can understand that people might get burned out on games from time to time, and I think that's okay. If it isn't something that's exciting you at this moment, even though you have a wall full of games that you haven't played, that's okay. They'll still be there if you take a little break from the hobby and come back to it. Let's see. Chad has a good comment about disc golf. I find it's really helpful to have someone record your throw in slow motion. Then you can really dissect how you can improve your form. I need to do that. I think my footwork needs some work. I need to maybe have someone record me a little bit. Oh, cool. Luke wants to highlight the Maple Syrup Shop Talk featuring Indigenous game designers tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8 o'clock here in St. Louis. That's great. Thank you for highlighting that, Luke. I really appreciate that. Steve has a cat that they're struggling to name. The kids want to call her Fuzzy, and his spouse doesn't like that name. Hopefully y'all figure it out. So the cat doesn't get too confused. I had a cat. Biddy actually went through a number of names before I just stopped changing the nicknames and just called him Biddy from then on. Icy Skater has 4 pets currently, but their total is 20 over the years. That's a lot of pets. 20 pets over the years. Chad says, I just bought a new grill for the summer. Do you like to grill? What's your go-to grilling meal? I actually had a really delicious meal at I don't own a grill right now, but a friend has a grill, and they invited us over, and we had grilled salmon the other day. That was really, really delicious. Salmon burgers. I do something. I sometimes like to grill. I am happier more if someone else is grilling and I can bring some things to put on it or just enjoy what they're grilling. I'm happy for that experience. I like hanging out near a grill while someone else is grilling. My go-to grilling meal, as a pescatarian, there isn't a lot that we can put on the grill. So grilled veggies, like grilled mushrooms, I really, really like grilled mushrooms quite a bit. But I also like grilling like Beyond Burgers, Beyond Sausages. They're good on the grill. They're not quite as good as the originals, but they're pretty close to it. And salmon, there are ways, some fish that you can put on the grill that I do enjoy as well. Ray has 4 pets in his life. Let's see, 5. Oh, yeah, I saw that before. Steve has 2 goats right now. Impressive. Valerie has 2 cats, and in her lifetime, 7 cats and 2 dogs. So 9 total pets. Chad says, how about Smitten the Cat? Smitten the Cat. Smitten the Cat. trying to get that reference. I don't know. Oh, I see. Chad is trying to help name Steve's pet, Smitten the cat. Yeah. Smitten? Mark says, do you have an estimate as to how much Rolling Realms Redux will be posted on the web store? I'm saving up for this coming payday. I mean, it'll be around the cost of Rolling Realms, a little bit more because the box is bigger. But yeah, right around the cost of Rolling Realms. Let's see. Peter says, I'm wanting the metal mechs for Scythe, but they're out of stock in the European web store. Any ideas? Well, make sure to sign up for a back in stock notification. Because that is not just a notification for you, but it's also a signal to us that we need to restock them on the web store. Let me see how many we have in stock in the US to see if we have enough to restock over there. All right, metal mechs. Oh, we hardly have any here. Okay, we're making more. We don't have enough to restock right now, but we are making more. They are in progress right now. Let me see if I have any estimate. I believe we just recently started making them, so it will be a while before that time comes. It'll be in a few months, late summer, I think. Yeah, maybe September, October will be when they'll be back in stock. Yeah, sorry about that. I see people saying, or Hilda says loves grilling pineapple to add to salmon burgers. Actually, we had there was a pineapple relish that went along with the salmon burgers that was quite good for us the other day too. So I can definitely relate to that. Four Dogs. Ian says Archie is his avatar. Tim says, are we watching House of the Dragon? I need therapy after the last episode. It was an intense episode. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but we are watching it. And wow, yeah, that was, yeah, intense is the right word for it. I won't say anything else, but yeah, absolutely. We're also watching The Acolyte. A lot lower stakes in The Acolyte than House of the Dragon, it seems. But we're enjoying The Acolyte, the Star Wars show right now. I think the new episode is live today, so we might check that out. Mark says, will Codename keep? Well, Mark, you know that I don't spoil stuff about code names. I know you're asking, what's the timing for it? But we'll hold off on that. Right now, let's focus on Rolling Realms Redux, and then we'll talk about what's next after that. Yeah. What else do we have? Another question. Okay, here's a question from William. He says, if you were in the World Series of Board Gaming Grand Finals, I think the World Series of Board Gaming is coming up fairly soon, what game would you hope to play? In other words, what game do you play the best that you're confident that you would win? I don't know if I'm entirely confident that I'd win any game significantly more often than other games. I have found that, very oddly, I am pretty darn good at on tour. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's risk management or something like that. I do approach the game from a risk management standpoint, but there's a lot of luck in the game in on tour. I guess all players use the same luck though. So I might choose that. Yeah, I think I have a pretty good high score and win rate in on tour. So that might be my pick. But I love that question. I'm curious if anyone else has an answer to that. Is there any game that you just happen to be really good at? And if you could choose that game for a high stakes session, what game would that be? Let's see. Andrew has a question about the UK Games Expo. So I should ask this or answer this before we get too far away from the UK Games Expo, which was a little while ago. He says that it was so popular that many times it felt overcrowded. In your view, how can such events maximize their income without overfilling venues and raising ticket prices? I think that's a great question. And my thought when I read this question at first was, what is your priority as a convention? What is your priority? Is your goal to make money? And if your goal is to make money, then yeah, I mean, you prioritize things like higher prices and bigger spaces along with higher prices and try to crowd as many people in there as possible. But if your goal is to serve the people who were able to attend the convention, then overcrowding is definitely an issue. And you're trying to create the best experience for the right number of people to attend. Then if you're trying to serve the people in that way, then yeah, you need to set a limit on the number of people who can attend. we've taken this approach with Design Day here at Stonemaier Games. Like, we could pack 150 people into pieces if we really had to. I think that would probably stretch the fire code, but we probably could do that. But it would be so crowded and so loud, and designers wouldn't be able to really feature their games through multiple sessions. It wouldn't be the best experience for the attendees. And so that's why we cap Design Day. And that means that some people can't attend Design Day because we can only fit a certain number of people in the door. So it doesn't end up serving everyone. But we do think the space that we have at Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe is the right space for Design Day. And so, yeah, we've made that decision. I think for questions like this, I think it's a great question. The organizer, the publisher, whoever it is, needs to decide, who are we serving here? What's our goal here? And once you know that, then answers are a little bit easier to find. Let's see. Dennis says he's loving the Acolyte. I have to watch the previously in at the start of episode 3 to remind myself of almost everything that's happened. Yeah, it has been helpful to watch the previously on in the Acolyte. I wonder if any Star Wars shows have previously on content that isn't from the show, that is like from other shows. I'm trying to think if that's happened. It might have happened in the Book of Boba Fett when they look back at the Mandalorian, but I can't remember them doing it with the Acolyte. And part of the reason might be that the Acolyte is I think the earliest Star Wars live action content that we have, period. Like, I don't think there is any live action content for Star Wars in the timeline of Star Wars that happens before the Acolyte, which is kind of cool that we've gone that far back. Icy Skater says, don't laugh too hard, but my game I win a lot is Clue. So I asked, what game do you win more often than other games that you might want to choose if you had a high stakes session? I win so much that no one will play with me. I've tried Alchemist and other deduction games, and I get told that no one will play with me. Wow, that's awesome that you're that good at deduction games, including Clue. That's really impressive. Trying to think of any other deduction games that I played. Have you played? Actually, one that you might try to play, if I may throw out a recommendation for you, is the Shipwreck Arcana. It is a cooperative game, so it's one that you can use those deduction skills to help everyone at the table rather than just yourself. If you haven't had a chance to play that, I highly recommend the deduction game, the Shipwreck Arcana. And also, if you want a pretty difficult deduction game that is a little bit more team-based, one versus many, I believe, although it is fully cooperative in the end. It feels like one versus many, but it is fully cooperative, is A Message from the Stars. I played that recently. It broke my brain a little bit, but if you're really good at deduction games, you might be really good at A Message from the Stars. Peter says, when a game goes to production, do you ever encounter many printing or other issues from the manufacturer? And if so, are they usually straightforward to rectify? Usually, yes. And no, we typically do not encounter many of those things. Oftentimes, there's maybe one or two little things we noticed that may have been the result of a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. With Panda, their quality is so high that it's not really ever an issue of quality. It's almost always an issue of miscommunication, and we straighten it out and we move forward. But that's why it's really, really important, and I appreciate that Panda does this. They send a pre-production copy to us. So they send a copy of the game that looks and feels like a real final copy of the game, even though it isn't. Mass production has not started. Production of any sort has not started at that point, but that helps us figure out those things before production starts. Luke says Big 2 might be his game that he wins more often than other games. And Wendy, well, Wendy has a lot of pets. 3 cats, 1 dog. Lifetime, she said 7 dogs, 5 cats, 1 parakeet, 2 cockatiels, and tropical fish. And she volunteers at a cat shelter for extended fur family. That's wonderful, Wendy. It sounds like you've had a life surrounded by wonderful pets. I'll go for one more, Stonemaier. Oh, yeah. So this was an interesting. Oh, no, I'll save this for another time. This is a great question that I want to ask. Let's see if I ask an easier question. So here's one. Andrea says, what were your primary career plans or interests before you began game design and development full time? And I wanted to answer that in 2 different ways, because my job, even though game design and development is part of my job, it is not my full-time job. It's just part of many things that I do at Stonemaier Games, including kind of overseeing all the different things that we're doing that other people are handling, along with communications, marketing, a lot of project management. A lot of my job is project management. Design and development are a relatively small part of my job, but an important part of that. But what was I doing before that? What were my career plans or interests? In college, I thought I was going to move to Japan and work for a company, not a specific company, but a company in Japan. But I kind of finished my journey through Japanese after studying abroad there, and I realized I had that Japanese experience that I wanted. I worked. So after that, I didn't really have plans. I thought I knew I wanted to write a novel. I thought that maybe that I could make a career out of that if I got really, really lucky, but that didn't end up happening. I did end up writing a novel and a screenplay and a few other things, but didn't publish them. But I did end up working for a medical textbook publishing company that focused on project management. I'm really glad I did. Oh, there was also a time in my life where I thought I wanted to open a restaurant because I love food. And then I worked in a restaurant for a few summers in college and realized that I love food, but I didn't necessarily want to own a restaurant or even manage a restaurant. And then I had a career after publishing project management. I worked in operations. I was the director of operations at an on-campus facility here in St. Louis. That wasn't necessarily part of my career plan, but I did enjoy the experience of learning to manage people, manage a facility, and learn a lot about fundraising because it was for a nonprofit. So I don't know. It's been a long time since I had like career plans. I didn't even really. Part of my career plan wasn't to get into the board game industry. The board game industry. That wasn't part of my plan. It just kind of happened. Like I dabbled in it, and then it became something big enough that I could make a career out of it. And I'm very fortunate for that. I thank you all for that opportunity. So yeah, fun question there about how things turn out differently than how I may have envisioned them turning out. And I have another question here, but I'll save that for a future live cast. Let's see. Steve has one last question here. How does champion and ambassador different? I assume that's not equal titles. Yeah, they are completely different systems. Stonemaier Champions, it's a paid membership, $15 a year, approximately, depending on currency conversions, where you get a 20% discount on all Stonemaier Games products that you buy from our web store for that year. And you also are supporting the content that we create through that membership. Ambassadors are volunteers. They are people who volunteer their time, sometimes being paid for that time as like proofreaders, playtesters, things like that. But they're volunteering their time to support and uplift Stonemaier Games and to welcome more people into the Stonemaier Games community through their time and talent. So, and that anyone can become a champion. Ambassadors have to apply for it, so we can see if you are a right fit for to be a Stonemaier ambassador. But yeah, it is more of a volunteer demo, helping to make our products better platform program, whereas Champions is a paid membership program with perks and benefits and things like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your answers and your questions today. It's always a joy to chat with you. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And join me next Wednesday for the next live cast, but also feel free to join me next Monday on our website as I start to reveal the design diaries for Rolling Realms. I really look forward to that. All right. Take care. Have a great day, a great week, great weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye.